All right, welcome to Bleav in Chargers with the great Lorenzo Neal. Up for the Hall of Fame. Let's get that thing moving, people. Let's get it moving.
Let's
Low for the Hall
go.
of Fame. He is up. He is in the mix, and he ought to be in. If you're the best player at your position in your era, it is ridiculous that you are not in the Hall of Fame. So we're going to continue to move that needle as best as possible. Low, great to see you. This is the
You
first
too.
Bleav in Chargers we're doing in 2025 with a loss on the back end. So we're going to dig into that. I saw you had a chance to do a Bleav pod with Carl Banks, kind of previewing it together. But what a bummer, man. What a bummer to get out of New York with an ugly game. And before I turn it over to you, again, a tip of the cap and a big thank you to FanDuel. It's why we're here. It's one of the reasons we get to continue to do this. So we thank them. Going to get into into the line for the Chargers Commanders here in just a second. But before we look forward to Washington, let's look back at New York and just what you thought going in versus what you thought coming out.
Yeah, you know what, Money? To me, it was a tough spot. Last week we talked about it. I talked about the 3 hour difference and just, hey, look, you played a tough physical game the week before against the Denver Broncos. It wasn't a good spot. I'm just going to be honest. It wasn't a good spot for the Chargers. You're playing against Dart. You look at the quarterback. Didn't hurt you necessarily throwing the ball. Did he make some throws? Yes. Killed you with his legs. His legs kept him in the game. Played with that bigger. You knew this guy was going to try to will this team to win. He did that. The biggest concern to me, what I've seen and my biggest takeaway of the year thus far, if you have Herbert, you give him a pocket, Herbert can kill you. He's one of the best, if not arguably top 2 or 3, just throwing the ball, pure passer. When you say, okay, now you got to move and now you got to throw with accuracy, your launch angle changes. You're throwing from the sidearm, you're throwing over the top, you're throwing under, you're doing all kinds of things to avoid the pressure, to get the ball by defenders, throw off balance. You're not square in the pocket. You're not climbing in the pocket. You don't have your feet set, your hips, all that stuff is out the door when you're moving. And then his athletic ability, is he going to hit some? Absolutely, because he's that type of quarterback. But even Mahomes, it doesn't matter. Josh Allen, when you're running sideways, you throwing across the body. They throw some, but at times the ball gets away from them because that's just football. So this team is going to continue to struggle if you do not have the pass game up front. Games are won and lost in the trenches. This Charger team, the crazy thing about Money, if they score 24 points or more, just 24, I don't think they would lose. I think this team would win 14, 15 games this year, at least 13. That's how good, even though defense give up plays at times. If this team could score 24 points, they're a tough out. And I just don't know if they can do it right now.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think I'll start with the defense. And look, they gave up 21, 11 were drives that started inside their own 5 off the interceptions. So you're talking about a defense that really gave up 10 points. Because the 11 points, it was a miracle. They held them to a field goal from the first and goal from the 2 on the Dexter Lawrence interception. And that, by the way, talk about a hustle play from Herbert. I mean, it basically took 4 points off the board. I mean, Lawrence was going in until Herbert chased him down, tripped him up, and then the defense stepped up and held him to 3 there. And then obviously the second interception on just a wonky play from Tyler Conklin. When you go back and watch it, I'm not sure what the hell he was doing on that rub. He just kind of backed his ass right into Ladd, knocked him off. It was an anticipation throw. Ladd's on the ground. And there you go. You nearly get another pick 6, and that led to 8. So, it's a defense that still played well. I think, I'm kind of going all over the place. So I'm going to start where you started. Last year, they were fine. We talked about this last week. They were totally fine in those 10 a.m. games. Smoked Carolina. I should probably just look at it because we went through it. But the only game they lost in the early window was Pittsburgh. And that was the game coming off of Herbert's ankle injury. He wasn't right. He tried to play. He had to come out for like 2 series. But other than that, they played. Here, let me just get to it. Sorry. Let me go because I think it's such a curious thing, right? So they hammer Carolina, hammer Cleveland 27-10. They win in Atlanta with 3 interceptions on Kirk Cousins in a 10 a.m. start, 17-13, and they destroy New England 40-7. There were no issues whatsoever with the 10 a.m. Pacific start. This game, man, this team looked flat. This team was sloppy. It was in all phases of the game. We got J.K. as one of the best punters in football through 3 weeks. He shanks one, at the worst possible time. You got a pass, you got a special team. So let's just start special teams. They get 2 penalties. You back the Giants up to their own 2, and somehow you let their punter get off a 63-yard punt with a 5-yard return, and yet you can't, when you had to have it, get that punt that JK had been hitting all day. That's execution. This team came in with 15 penalties for 107 yards. They had 14 penalties for 107 yards in this game. Sloppy. Wow. And I think that speaks to your point about it being an early game. They're just sloppy. It's procedural penalties. It's lining up offsides. It's Troy Dye with a bad offsides on a third, on a 1st and 10 on that drive. You had to try to get him off the field on a 3 and out so you could get some good field position and try to tie this game up with a 3. And it was and it was 6 offensive penalties, false starts, the ugly rub route, like we said, the offensive pass interference that led to the interception. Right. There was a lot of ugly out there. I think even on the coaches, what they want to do. What the easy path was for Jackson Dart. It's handing it off to Scadaboo. It's an RPO. Am I going to give it to Scadaboo? Am I going to keep it and run? Am I going to get a quick pass out of this? And they came out with a light box, and they got gashed. I mean, gashed. Hot knife through butter on that opening drive. And it was just kind of curious. It's like, if Jackson Dart's going to throw a missile on point to Malik Neighbors, okay, fine. I know it sounds crazy. You don't want to get beat with an explosive, but I'll live with that because we know what they want to do. We know what the plan was going into this game. And yet they came out with a light box, and then it took them a minute to adjust. And once they adjusted, after that first drive, then you saw, the defense bowed up. And it was just odd. Offensively, to your point, Lo, just about the protection, it's got to get better. He's the most pressured quarterback. He's the most hit quarterback. He's the most blitzed quarterback in the league right now. And you're asking guys that were on the practice squad and guys that are supposed to be backups to be starters. It's not Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, Mekhi Becton. Instead, it's Trey Pipkins, Austin Deculus, and Jamari Sawyer. And that front was in his lap the entire game.
Entire game.
And it's like, I don't know what you want him to do.
I don't either. And that's the thing. Money, you and I, we talk about backup quarterbacks. If you got a good backup quarterback, he's a gap. He can go in there for a game or two and maybe win you one, lose the other. You got a good backup guy. He can come in a game and play really well, but he's a backup for a reason. That's why they're called backups. So you can have guys in certain situations, and now you're saying you got to carry the load. They can't do it. The biggest thing about this, what I'm looking at this team, the window is open. In the AFC right now, it's Buffalo and Surrest League. Now, Buffalo, because of Josh Allen, he can run. Their offense is so explosive. Their defense is not better than the Chargers. It's just offensively. Right now, you're the front office. You Joe Tees. You those guys. You're Harbaugh. Let me tell you, I'm getting on the phone. I'm trying to make something happen because if I have an offensive line, because we got to see the young fella, and like you said the closest thing to Michael Turner, for a big back that fast, and if he's leaving the speed. You talked about Michael Turner. You look at this young running back, Marion, he has it. This is a situation where the window is open. You have to make hay while it's open. You have to. So this situation this year, right now, where this team is, it's one of the better teams in the AFC. But you got to secure and got to get this offensive line. And I don't know if you can just plug and play. I don't know if you can find a rental and know that's where you're good at finding different guys the team that say, hey, we can use a rental. It's a 1-year deal to take on the salary, because you have to get better in the trenches if you're going to get where you can get this year.
Yeah, I think the it, Lo. It's so hard to find offensive linemen. Guys are not trading offensive linemen. Cam Robinson just got signed by the Browns. It was another one where if you're a day later with Khalil, you probably would have got Clowney. If you're a day later with Cam, you probably get him to fill in for Alt over this next month or however long this is going to be. At least you got sort of good news there that it wasn't a knee and it was the high ankle, and it's probably going to be somewhere around a month as opposed to maybe 8 to 10 weeks. But still, you're talking about going into the season with arguably the best offensive line in
Yeah.
football. And now neither of your all-pro tackles are there. You're down a right guard, a left guard a right guard in Mekhi Becton with concussion. Hopefully please can he be back this week because he was playing fantastic football.
Yeah.
And, you look at it now and it's, I don't, well, here's what I would say, Lo. The answer to me is you just got to run the ball. Like you can't run the ball 12 times against the New York Giants, who have their ears pinned back and they are hunting, man. They are head hunting Herbert. And they ran the ball 12 times. 13 if you count Herbert's incredible scramble on third down. And by the way, that was his only run. Like, you got to start calling some design runs for him. You've got to run the ball more because that defense, it's the and the thing is, this was a talking point in the national media all week, is that the Chargers are the best team, one of the best teams on play action, but they're not running the ball well. Yet all the teams, because you have the reputation of Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman and a first-round draft pick in the backfield, are honoring the play action. And the Giants just said, to hell with that. We're not going to honor it.
No, we're going to go.
We're not going to bite on a single play action. And if we get burned by the run because we're coming and they're coming at us, so be it. This is a team that had allowed 154 yards per game on the ground, 31st in the league. You got Amarian ripping off a 54-yarder for a touchdown. You saw how he carried 6 different guys on a 3rd and 1 for 18 yards, and he only got 10 other carries outside of that. Like, you had a 3 and out where he never even touched the ball. So it's
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's odd because we were begging Greg Roman to stop running the ball after last year. Like, hey, you got Herbert, man. You got to cut him loose. And now it's like, hey, man, you got to run the ball. Herbert is getting destroyed back there. I mean, he is getting destroyed. And even Coach Harbaugh said in his presser, he's like, we got to do a better job of protecting him. Well, there's a way to do that, and that's to run the ball.
Yeah, you have to, because I watch Trey and like you said, they're better run blockers, I think, than pass pro. And then if you can run, now teams aren't going to pay their ears back, because I watch sometimes you trying to block and being able to pass off twists and line stunts. You saw Trey get too far in, can't come back off, loops, and they're right in Herbert's face. You got to figure out this run game and get it going, because you were running the ball well. That third and 1, watching the young fella run through and over and then drag the pal, that was pretty amazing. And when you're running and only 10 more carries after that, that's where coaches, like you're talking about, they got to reflect and look at it and say, how do we get better? Because you understand that it's a copycat league. Teams are going to say, forget the play action, pin your ears back. Their offensive line right now is hurting. They're a little bit, they're reeling. So what are we going to do to combat that? We have to get after them. Let's see if they fix the mistakes from last week. That's what the Commanders are going to come in here, and it's about, look, let's pin our ears back. Let's get after these guys. Let's make Herbert uncomfortable. Let's blitz him. Let's be in his face, and he'll throw the ball. He'll give you a couple picks because you're asking this guy to carry the team. And so it's going to be interesting. And knowing Harbaugh, you know what he wants to do. Here's a guy that he used to run the ball all the time. So I think him and Greg Roman, they're going to sit in that office and say, look, we can run behind Trey. We can run. We got guys. They're not necessarily the great pass blockers at times, especially against guys that have a lot of moves and got a lot of wiggle. But hey, look, let's go big boy. Go 12 personnel, 22 personnel. Let's go jumble, and let's bloody these guys' nose.
Yeah.
Let's turn it into a dogfight so we can keep the defense a little fresh. We can't go 3 and out every other series. We got to sustain some drives to give our defense some opportunities to get some rest. So I think you are going to have to go to that drawing board and run the ball and be more physical, especially the next couple of weeks till you get help.
Yeah, I think it was, I was just trying to get the snap count here. 12. Only 6 run block snaps for Tucker Fisk. And it's like, why is he on the team? Why is he on the team? It's sort of one of those where, and look, again, Will Dissly, who's one of the best blocking tight ends in the league, was out of this game as well. So you're not only down Alton Slater, but you're down as good as Tucker is, Will's better. So you're down him. But I think you just kind of look at what they're trying to do with Matlock. And for me, I would just rather have Tucker Fisk in that role. I think he's
Yeah.
he's just more athletic. He's got plenty of sand in the ass where he can move the same amount of he can get the same movement, and he's just got a little more athleticism. They're running Matlock, in motion, trying to pick up these pass rush, and it's just not happening. And they are
No.
flying in from the backside and blowing up these runs. And I think, with where they're at, with no Joe Alt, no Rashawn Slater, hopefully Mekhi Becton's back, and they're signing guys off the street. I mean, they just brought in who they just bring in? They brought in Michael Dunn off the street, who has been on San Francisco, Cleveland, Miami, Jacksonville, Rams. I mean, you're talking about just practice squad wave, practice squad activated, practice squad wave, IR wave, designate, all of so it's and look, maybe they see something there that they can get something out of him. Whether or not he's going to be active this week, I don't know. They drafted the only thing they added to the group outside of Becton was drafting Branson Taylor in the 6th round, and I think they're recognizing that if this is a team that's supposed to be built off the offensive line, which it is, that's why you drafted Joe Alt top 5. That's why you made Rashawn Slater the highest paid left tackle in football. It's why you paid Mekhi Becton a bunch of money. That you got to have depth there, and it's not easy to find depth. Those guys are hard to find, but that's how quickly this thing can get derailed because that's what this thing is predicated upon. And
Yeah,
now they've,
I do know. And money, I asked you real quick, and I'll let you finish your thought. I'm just to a point now. I don't want to see the Chargers. None of the offensive linemen. I don't care how upset and how mad they get. Everyone's wearing knee braces.
yeah,
When does Harbaugh just say, "Hey guys, I understand you like to be free. I understand, you like to run and you feel better, but when you come to a point and say, hey, you know what? I'm making all my offensive line mandatory. My offensive line wear knee braces because it's just if they're big guys, a lot of bodies around, and it's always these and they don't wear them. And I'm kind of shocked after so many injuries that it's just like, hey guys, we're going to practice with them. We're going to get used to them. And I was on teams where it was mandatory.
right. Yeah, I mean, look, it's the Rashawn Slater one was weird. It was a weird drill. He was engaged and got popped on a modified, I think it was a 5-on-7 or something. It was so weird. And the alt one, like you said, it's just a body that's getting rolled up on him,
Yeah.
and he doesn't see it coming from behind. I thought it was his knee. Like I said, it's a high ankle. Instead, look, either way, he's out a month. Mekhi Becton's a concussion. Trey Pipkins is dealing with a knee and an ankle. I mean, you're right. These guys are getting busted up. And it can, I think I say all of this, and yet I still think they can overcome it because Herbert's healthy. Now he's not going to be healthy for long if you keep having teams tee off on him like they have been. But if you think about how ugly that game was and how bad it was, 2 turnovers that gave the Giants the ball with a goal to go situation from the 5 and from the 2. And yet here you are with an opportunity in your defense facing a rookie quarterback in his first start and a team that they had barely allowed to move the ball for over a quarter and a half to get the ball back and win the game or tie the game and win the game. So it's not like it's, they're getting blown off the field. They're still in penalties again contributed to what a mess that was. So they can totally clean it up. I firmly Bleav that. I just think there has to be an adjustment in, I think, personnel and figuring out, is Sawyer really a guard? Is he, because when he was put into the guard position last year, it did not go well. He's now been put into the guard position in a game and a half here this season, and it has not gone well. And without Alt and without, Slater, obviously Pipkins is going to start in one spot, but do you just put him back at tackle? Is he better off at tackle? And I don't know what the answer is there because you go back to that game low and you got Jamal. Let me just pull up the pass numbers, the pass protection numbers, because it is not pretty. You got
No,
Jamari Sawyer with
no.
48 pass blocks, 5 pressures, 2 hurries, 2 hits, and a sack. And he's given up a pressure rate of over 10%. Austin Deculus, who came in for Alt, 6 pressures, 3 hurries, 3 hits, and a 15% pressure rate. And then Bradley Bozeman, who's, next to Sawyer as a center, you shouldn't see 4 pressures in a game from a center. Like, you cannot have that pressure coming straight up the gut like that. Like, you're talking about, and Zion played pretty well. He played all right. He gave up one pressure. Pipkins gave up 4 pressures on one tackle. Like, that's what, 6, 10, 15, 20, 23 pressures.
And how many times you throw the ball?
Yeah, a lot. 40.
But 40. So half. So you got to realize over half, you were pressured. Think
Yeah.
about
He's been the
this.
most pressured quarterback, Lo.
It's crazy, and that's what people don't understand. Like, okay, interception. Oh, okay, God, what's going? Man, every time, every other play, every time if he throws the ball twice, one of those times or 1.25, he's going to have pressure.
Yeah.
How can you be that accurate? How can you have success? You have to secure this line. I don't care what do you got to do. Do you got to go bunch? Do you got to change personnel? Do you got to think about something? Okay, what do I do to take pressure? Do I say, okay, I got to friggin' line a guy and stack, and I'm going to throw slants. Okay, I'm a slant one side. I'm going, quick outs the other way. How do I get the ball? I'm saying, okay, I got the tight end, going to block ones and release into the flat. How do I hold this pressure off? Because guys going to bat balls down. You have to make Herbert more efficient because, and he is efficient, but you would have to how do you make his job easier and simpler? What are some of the things that this coaching staff to do to help the offensive line to better the offensive line play? And that's getting rid of the ball quick. That's running play action because now, but you said, the Giants pinned their ears back. So what do we do then? Do we do the read? Okay, because we know now, we've seen what Amarian can do. So do you now let Amarian hit and now let Herbert pull the ball, let him read the end. Now from there, play action, plot pass, do other things because with the tight ends, you have to change the way that you operate this offense for efficiency because the guys up front, they are not getting it done on a consistent basis. One or another, guys, they're taking time. They're taking turns, breaking pass protection, and that is the recipe for destruction. And we saw it. Yeah, it's early, but that's one game.
Yeah, and I know we focused on the defensive issues, the offensive issues, the special teams issues. The one thing I didn't mention, and who knows what this game would look like, because we celebrate him and he deserves to be celebrated all the time. But man, what a bad game for Ladd. He dropped that pass on that opening drive on that 3rd down, and he probably had another 25 yards in front of him. And now you get the ball first. You got a rookie quarterback. You march down the field. You punch it in the end zone, and you're trying to force them to match you. After, this is a team that had been run over all season long. I mean, you look through the metrics and they were 30th to 31st in nearly everything. And now you have Justin Herbert in town. And on that first drive, they run it down your throats and punch it in. And instead, Ladd just drops a wide open pass on 3rd down and it becomes a 3 and out. And then on the very next possession on the right sideline, he drops a ball that would have been a big gainer for 25 yards. Guy had 5 targets, 1 catch for 11 yards. That's I thought it was huge. It could have really changed the dynamic of the game if the Chargers would have scored on that opening drive, especially if they have scored a touchdown. And, everybody's got a little juice then instead of being like, what a bummer, and Ladd's going to the sideline with his head and pounding his head and his head's hanging instead of celebrating. Here's another touchdown. Let's get it, guys. Let's run over these guys again. And, drops were an issue. You mentioned the quick pass game, Lo. I think that's we know that Ladd and Keenan can beat their guys off the jump like that. They can do it. And you just got to start dialing some of that up. But to me, I think it's the run game. It's got to be, and that means, like I said, it's got to be more Tucker Fisk and Will Dissly if he's healthy this week. If Scott Matlock is going to be out there, I think you just need to see a little bit more from him. I'm not the guy that needs to talk about it. You're the Hall of Fame fullback, Lo. I mean, what you see from him and where this thing is headed and what they're asking of him and what he's able to do, I just don't know if it all lines up right now.
No, I'm with you. I go with Fisk. Fisk, you see his, dad played in the league. This guy knows how to play with balance. He plays low. It's great. He plays with balance. And when you watch, fullback come across, at times he's going so fast that he can't set up. So guys are speed rushing. He's trying to recover. It's like when you come across in motion, you got to get square and you got to drop your hips and be prepared. And it's just right now, at times you just see it just boom. It's so quick. The pressure's on and they're trying to recover and they're not there. So I say, look, Let's try to get this thing. Let's go with Fisk. Let's get him in the game. Let's go some 12. Let's go with these big guys. And now you got to say, hey, look, hey, Fisk, you got to be able to block. You know that this guy can block. You know that he can scoop block. They can double team. You can get more beef at the point of attack. You can get a defensive end, 260, 50 pounds, doesn't matter. You get that tackle and Fisk on that guy, that, you know, you're talking about 500-600 pounds, just gonna eat
Yeah.
someone up, create that space. It's going to make it a tough out. Now you have a guy that's moving. Now you're moving the point. So you're stretching the defense because you're moving the defensive end. You're creating a new line of scrimmage. You're making it go laterally and you're pushing it back. So you're creating running lanes for your back at the point of attack. And that's what you need. As long as the backside continues to cut off and you get these
Right.
guys to cut those guys off, you are creating that running lane with this. So I'm lining up and I'm running. I don't care, you know, and then, you know, I don't care if they got 4 to side. I am going to run until you stop me. And then you can play action off of that. Now you got the drag on the backside. It just can open up your offense and put Herbert in an easier situation, especially the way that the young fella's running the ball, Marian's running the ball. If you can do that at a 12 personnel, now play action is coming after that.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier too, Lo. Like, just get him more involved in the flat. Just kind of get those pass plays that are really just an extension of the run game.
Exactly.
Let's get that going. And again, if they can take it away, then fine, but make them take it away. Let them know that you're going to be doing it all day and that you want to get physical at the point of attack and you want to run the ball and you want to establish the run. And then that way you can get that play action, which has been so effective working again, because the Giants were just having none of it. And that's one of the reasons why Marion ripped one off for 54 yards, because they were just not buying it. And that's, how you get those big gainers. You run into boxes that are coming after you. And once you get past that first level, there's nothing to slow you down. So look, we should flip this thing forward, because
Sure.
that's, they're 3-1. And look, 3-1, and all 3 wins are in the division. Great first quarter. You do that every
Agreed.
quarter, you got 12 to 13 wins and
I love it.
probably a division win. So a division crown. So totally fine. 4-0 is what we thought we were going to get based on what the Giants had going and who they were starting and how that thing was. And it probably should be 4-0 based on how sloppy they played. And it was still a field goal game. But it's 3-1. That's reality. Get this one and see if you can have a 4-0 second quarter, because you got 3 games at home and your only game on the road is against a Miami team that just lost Tyreek Hill, has not played well all season, and everything else is at home. Washington this week, Indianapolis, and I think it's Minnesota, right? I Bleav that's what
Yeah.
our schedule lines up as. So you get that done, and you feel a lot better. I mean, you're 7-1, or even if you're 6-2, you still feel pretty darn good at 6-2 going to a next quarter that would be at Tennessee, Pittsburgh at home, at Jacksonville, Vegas at home. Like, it lines up where you can really build this thing going into that final 5 games of the season that we know is pretty gnarly, with Philly and Kansas City back to back, Dallas on the road, Houston home looks a lot easier than it originally had, and then at Denver, which is not going to be easy. So you have got to get some win equity here early on in case if the injuries continue to pile up on the back end. But we get to Washington, and they're 2-2. Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin are questionable. They had not practiced up until this point today. They don't have to do the injury report until today, so we'll see whether or not they got out there on the field and limited, or if they got on the field at all. But Marcus Mariota's been quarterback in this team the last 2 weeks. Terry McLaurin was out. You had a Falcons team that got humiliated by the Carolina Panthers, shut out by the Panthers 30-0, and they hang 34 on the Commanders, a lot of it with Bijan running the ball. And that goes to our point. What did Bijan do? 17 for 75 and a tug, and then he had 106 in the passing game. They were just using those quick passes as an extension of the run game. So he ends up getting out of there with 181 yards and a touchdown. And Penix used his legs as well. You had Tyler Algier, who got another 51 yards and a touchdown, as it was kind of a two-headed monster, 17 for Bijan, 16 for Algier. So, I mean, if Penix can throw for 313, 2 tugs, and Bijan can go for 180 from scrimmage and a touchdown on the ground, then, I think, and look, it's a pretty good defensive front for the Commanders. That interior of that line, led by, if you go, I should say, I'm trying to think of what is it? It's Deron Payne is who I'm thinking of. Is pretty darn good. He's been.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for it to pull up. Let's see, where is he? Yeah, Deron's been really good actually. He's got 12 pressures already from an
wow,
interior position.
wow,
They Dan Quinn's, we know Dan Quinn. We had Gus
yeah,
Bradley here for a while.
yeah,
So um, you got it's not good. It's another is it the same front? Is it the same front as the Giants? No. It most definitely is not. But the interior can run some games, and based how it's been going for Sawyer and Bozeman, you could have Deron Payne, the edge. That's who I was trying to think of. Sorry, I was scrambling there. Dorrance Armstrong, 18 pressures, 3 sacks,
wow.
13 hurries. So he's got an 18% pressure rate from the 19% from the edge. Deron's got 12% from the interior, and Jerzon Newton also has got 6 pressures from the interior in a limited role. They got Luvu there on one of the edges. Like that's a pretty darn good front. I mean, Von Miller is starting to kind of pick it up. He had a pretty rough start to the season. He's now up to 7 pressures and 2 sacks. So, it's not going to
Yeah.
be easy again.
No, it's not. But thank God that you're coming home. Look, you went on the road and you got embarrassed. Yeah, you could have still won, but you beat a team that was, lost to a team that hadn't won a game. Now you're coming back home. You're in LA. You're at home in front of your crowd. You didn't play well offensively. This is a game. This is a pride game. This is a game. Get it right. Let's this is that get back on track game.
Yeah.
You got to play just like the Giants played with their hair was on fire. The Giants up against it. You go with a new quarterback. You put a rookie. You saw the energy. They played with energy that whole game. No matter what, the Chargers swing, Chargers would hit them with one piece. They would hit the Chargers with two. This is the kind of game we need to see. Get your piss hot. I want to see this team respond. I want to see them respond. Yes, you're playing a good team, a playoff type caliber team, but you this is where a game you need to show your dumb. You're at home. You got embarrassed, and you got some backups now. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how those guys playing. But we know the kind of guys that are being coaching and pushing these men. Nick Hardwick, that offensive line coach, and these guys here, they're like, look, we got embarrassed. We got a future Hall of Fame quarterback behind you guys. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and you guys are letting this guy get killed. You're getting
Yeah.
him beat up. If we want to get to the playoffs and possibly Super Bowl, it's going to happen. We got to have Herbert. We got to protect him. So I think the offensive line mentally, physically, they got embarrassed. I want to see the way they respond. That's going to be my focus this week is to say, I want to see how this line recovers from what they did last week.
And speaking of lines, it is Chargers -2.5. The over under 48.5. So they're expecting some points to be scored in this one. But without Jaden Daniels, and I'd be surprised if he played. Now, I'll say this: Marcus Mariota is playing some good football right now for the Commanders. He's got a 100. Let's see, what does he got? Yeah, about 100 rating, 99.6. He's got 3 touchdowns to 1 pick. He's completing 65% of his passes. But the biggest thing for me with Mariota, and look, it goes for Jaden Daniels as well, is they're very smart about how they have, it's not Sam Hartman as their backup. Instead, they brought Mariota in. And he's a guy that can use his legs, and he's rushed it 80 times for 60 yards and a touchdown. That's 7.5 per. He's rushed for 3 first downs. And if there's one thing that's been an issue, so you took the offensive line low, I'm going to take the defensive front. Like, you have got to stop letting these quarterbacks run on you. From Patrick Mahomes in week 1, remember, they even let Geno, who does not run the ball, they even let him get a couple scrambles for 10, 15 yards. Last week, Jackson Dart ran all over him. Week before, Bo Nix ran all over him. Like, you're coming into another game with a quarterback, whether it's Daniels, who is electric if he's running the ball in the open field and can really get you. But Mariota's no different. Mariota's a 4-4 guy. I know he's a little bit older now, so he's not still the 4-4 guy, but that's a dude that had
Right.
some serious speed. And you've got to stop getting burned by the quarterback runs. You got to set the edge. You have to contain your quarterbacks, and you got to make tackles when tackles are there to be made. They've got a physical running game with the rookie Bill Krosky-Merritt, even without Austin Eckler, who they lost to the Achilles. But Krosky-Merritt's, he's a big dude, man, and he can run through you. And so I would assume they're going to do the same thing the Giants did. Let's just run these RPOs. This team has had issues slowing down quarterbacks when they're using their legs. And I think you're going to see a lot of that, from this team. And I think that's if the offensive line is being tasked with, giving Herbert some help, giving him some time to throw the ball, or at least giving him a lane to climb to throw the ball, or to escape, to use his legs, as opposed to just having it come at him from every angle. The defense has got to do a better job of making sure they do not get beat by quarterback runs. And that was the weird thing about the Giants game is, you look at the stats and it looks like the defense was really good, but I just felt like every time I looked up, the Giants were getting what they wanted.
Right.
They converted 50% of their third downs. They were off schedule 3 or 4 times. I'm talking 1st and 20s, 2nd and 16s, 3rd and 15s, and they're converting third downs on those series. And it's like those are the gotta have it moments. The old Harbaugh, be your best when your best is required. Well, that's when your best is required, when you've got this team in a 1st and 20, and now they're off schedule, and you've got the advantage. Use it. And you got offsides, and you got sloppiness and blown coverages, and tight ends wide open in the middle of the field. There was one on a 3rd and 15. Dan got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and you got a tight end that ends up going for 16 yards on a 3rd and 15. You've just got to clean up those plays. I thought it got really ugly in that game, where when it seemed like things were tilted in their favor, they just never capitalized on it, and they allowed the Giants to pick up that extra first down and run more clock.
Money, without a doubt, I'll say it. They underestimated the Giants. They were prepared, but they went in lackadaisical. And it was sort of like the book. You remember back in the day, The Turtle in the Hare, when the turtle took off and the rabbit would stop it and hanging out and said, okay. Then they started yelling. He's all right, let me catch him. And that's what it was. They just couldn't catch up in time. It was just, they let them jump on them. They played like they were the turtle. They played like they were playing against a turtle. They didn't really respect them. I know hardball and those coaches say, hey, look, this team, guys, we should win. If we play our best, this is a game we should win. They're going to a young quarterback. He's a rookie. He's going to throw you some interceptions. You can force him, get him off the spot. He's going to fumble the ball. This is a young quarterback. He's going to give you an opportunity. So guys going in, okay, cool. This is going to happen. And when it got off skip, when he friggin' drove the ball down the first drive and scored, punch you in the mouth, like, uh-oh. And all of a sudden you saw that, hey, this team was sticking around. Then you saw guys trying to get it situated, and it was too late. They just didn't come ready to play like they should have, the team that we're used to seeing. Yeah. And the Giants just jumped on them and capitalized, and they just couldn't recover. And that's what you want to see cleaned up this week. You want to see a team say, okay, yeah, we're a good team, but this is the National Football League. Those other guys get paid too. And even though we're a better team, if we don't play well, because we have 2 all-pro tackles not playing, where our offensive line, guys, let's be real, where our offensive line is just average. It's not a great offensive line right now. We're not above average. So we got to play. We have to play harder than the other team. Sometimes guys, they'll look at what they have and not look at themselves. You'll think we're a really good team, but how am I? And that's what I'm questioning. That's what I'm asking these offensive linemen, these guys on offense, look and say, yeah, we got a really good quarterback. Yeah, we got a really good team. We got a really good defense. But how am I? How am I playing? How am I going to hold my end up on the bargain for this team is a really good team? If I don't block, if we got, like you said, shoot at a 40 some throws, 22 of them were pressures. Every other play, play you're throwing the ball, somebody's putting pressure on you. You got to say, what are we doing collectively? So that's what I want to see, and I think they're going to get it done this week.
Yeah, and I think to illustrate my point about what you got to clean up, I said you look at the numbers, right, and you see the Chargers outgained the Giants by nearly 100 yards. They both had 11 drives, all right? Chargers got 6 yards per play. The Giants got, it's so funny you brought up the turtle in the hair. It's such a perfect analogy. Giants got 3.6 yards per play, right? So you look at that and you're like, oh, okay. Chargers held the Giants to 89 yards passing. That's it. 89 yards. Yet, at 3.3 yards per pass. Yet you go into it, and they sacked him 6 times. Thule had 4. Monster game for Thule. Played his tail off. Played amazing. Incredible football for Thule in that game. Um, and then you kind of dig a little bit deeper, and you're like, oh boy,
Oh
what's
boy.
this here?
Oh boy.
7 of 15 on third down. You come in. This was a team that was 31st on offense on third down. The Chargers were 5th on defense. 7 of 15, and then you see, oh boy, 11 rushing first downs.
Oh boy.
11 rushing first downs.
Oh boy.
And then the oh boy of oh boys is time of possession for your turtle. 35-28 to
Wow.
24-32 time of possession. They just dominated the ball. They didn't let the Chargers have the ball. And because they were just running the ball. Hey, I'll take 2nd and 4. I'll take 3rd and 3, and I'm going to run it again and pick up 4. And I'm going
Yeah,
to, and it's just it was really demoralizing. And I
it
think
was.
you've got, and I think if you're Washington with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, and with if there's going to be no Terry McLaurin, and with an offensive line, I think they might be getting Cosme back this week, but their offensive line's been beat up. The interior of that offensive line has been incredibly leaky. I think you could see and just like the Giants, the interior of the Giants' offensive line was incredibly leaky. So what do? They just ran to the edges and used the physicality of Scattaboo and Dart to try to make up for it. And I think you will see a very similar approach
Yeah.
from Washington. So it's the stuff that you allowed the Giants to do, and the 14 penalties for 107 yards is just inexcusable. Like that's as ugly as it gets. Um, that's what you got to clean up. That's what you've got to figure out. You cannot have as many penalties and penalty yards in that game as you have had in the previous 3. So you got to get back to where you were, which was right around 3 to 5 penalties per game, right around 30 to 40 penalty yards per game, and get out of that mess. And you've got to figure out how to stop that quarterback when the quarterback is running, because that's what really, really got to him. And I think it's going to have to do with, I think there's going to be some personnel conversations that have to be had about how you want to deploy these tight ends, these receivers, and these running backs. If you're going to go with Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins with Amarian Hampton, and you're worried about putting too much on his plate, well, then guess what? You got to run them. And if you're not going to run them, go out and sign someone that you're willing to run.
Yep.
Because if you got Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins on the roster and they don't get a single carry in a game, we got a problem. You have got to find another running back that can help keep Amarian's legs fresh, and that is a threat out there. And it just, you lose Najee. Look, this team is piling up injuries at an alarming rate. And,
Too
with
fast.
Najee, this thing looks different. You're
Yeah.
running the heck out of you're running the ball a lot more with Najee out there, and that's obviously not happened the rest of the year with the Achilles. So you either got to go find somebody, or those guys got to do it, or there's no reason to have them on the active roster.
Yeah, and
If you're not.
Haskins, and you're right, and Haskins can run the ball, and Verdell, you just give him throw those like you just talked about. If you're not going to necessarily run, throw the flare screens, throw the quick ball, get out of his hands. So it's just like a run. It's an extension of the run. Drop back, the running back checks 1, check 2, and just throw him a little bit. And now he's one-on-one in space against a linebacker because the interior lineman's out of the play, and he's against a linebacker or safety. Just do those plays. There are long extensions of a run game or a sweep. Get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, put it in the running back's hands, like you said. If you don't want to beat Amarian up, that's fine. But get those guys in there and let them do the plays that you believe that they can do. Put them in a situation for them to have success. And I think it's just a quick little flare, getting them out there on the edge and make them one-on-one. Riddell out there one-on-one. He's got good speed. He's got good wiggle. One-on-one with the linebacker. He's going to win more than he's going to lose.
Yeah, and look, I think on the flip side of that, it's what we've been talking about. Lo, this is a team that scored 27 points against the Falcons last week on the road and hung 41 on the Raiders at home. They can score. Their game before that, they scored 18 against Green Bay, 21 against the Giants with Jaden Daniels. But with Marcus Mariota running this offense, 41 points 2 weeks ago, 27 points last week. You're going to have to score some points. You're going to have to figure out, like you said, you're going to have to get to 24 probably.
Yeah.
And this defense, as great as they have played all year, and again, they didn't play terribly. They didn't play great. They played solid. Thule again played his tail off. Troy Dye was all over the place making tackles, even with a couple of the hiccups that he had. I think that I don't worry about the defense. I chalk the defensive side of the ball up to, yeah, they were flat. They came out flat. They looked sloppy. They made some bad, committed some bad penalties. Looked like the 10 a.m. thing got to them. It just wasn't right. What you said, maybe they take the opponent a little bit light. They'll get that thing right. That
Oh
that
yeah,
thing will be fine. That thing will be humming. I'm not as worried about that. It's the offense that we're, I think, concerned about. And again, at FanDuel, they got the Chargers as 2.5 point favorites, over under 48.5. So the people that got to come up with what they think is going to be as close to accurate as possible think this is going to be a bit of a high scoring game, and it's going to be a tight game. Home team gets 3 points. Chargers only laying 2.5.
right.
So that's kind of where their head is. And obviously, because we're taping this when we are, it's we don't know if it's going to be Jaden Daniels, if it's going to be Mariota, if McLaurin's going to be out there, if he's not. But just to kind of put a wrap on it for me, Lo, I think the one thing that I'd really like to see, I like that big front. I don't like the small front as much. I just think the identity of this team is rally and tackle. I don't think they need to be a, 5 even though they got those 6 sacks and they were great and Thule played his butt off again. I think the Thule, to have those 3 bigs in the middle, I
Yeah,
want those. I like that more. I like having Hand, Tart, and
me too.
Naquan out there
Yeah,
with your edges in Thule. And if you're going to kind of pull one of those guys off the interior, I like having a Boygby out there over Caleb Murphy. I like having that bit. Like
Bleav.
I'm almost for activating Cleveland Furl and getting that big edge out there. Set the edge. Just don't
Right.
let that quarterback run on you. Have a heavy-handed guy at the edge positions in Thule and either a Boygby and Furl. And let's just kind of keep this thing contained, because the middle of the field we know is going to be all right with Dayon and Derwin and kind of how that thing is working out. So I'd rather have that heavy front
I,
than
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because when you set the edge and you come across and now you make them stay in that phone booth. When you said, okay, now you don't have those heavy guys that can't set the edge and you widen the defense. Now you widen the defense. Now you're making the defense play every blade of grass, and you create too many lanes, especially with a mobile and a running quarterback. There's too much green grass to cover. That's what I like. I like what you're saying. Put in the big boys. I want the beef. Where's the beef? Put in the beef. Set the edge. Make them play in the sandbox. Make them play in the sandbox. Now you can't stretch the field, and now you make them do their damage. Now you're in fighting. You're Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson, buddy.
there we
You're
go.
fighting close and up close. You're not out there jabbing like Ali and being able to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Make them boys play in the phone booth. Offensively, I want to see the big boys. I want to see next week. I want to come on the show, and we're talking about money, giving the game ball to the tight ends,
Yeah.
Fisky and these guys, because they got out there and they created a new line of scrimmage and didn't let those guys set the edge. So that's what I want to see offensively. A lot of 12, big tight ends, run the ball, bloody their nose.
There we go. And get back to their winning ways. Improve to 4-1. Feel great about heading to Miami for a 10 a.m. Pacific time start, followed by 2 home games, one of them a Thursday nighter on a short week against the Vikings. Look, they're dealing with injuries. It's an incredible coaching staff that I've got full faith in can overcome even this amount of attrition. And I expect them to be great. I expect them to bounce back, especially defensively. I think they're going to have a great game. Just some of the adjustments that maybe they'll be talking about and we might see in that game. Again, thanks to FanDuel, -2.5, 48.5 on the over-under in favor of the Chargers. Hopefully we'll see a ton of you out there at SoFi. Love seeing the people. There were Bolt fans in every single section at MetLife. It was great to see. Certainly wasn't like a takeover or anything like that, but just the sprinkling of powder blue was wonderful. And a tip of the cap to our big boss, E-Dub, Eric Weinberger, who helped me out and got my daughter field passes. So I got to spend a couple hours with her on the field. She lives out there now. So that was nice. Engaged with a ton of people who listened to the pod and brought up Bleav in Chargers and ULO. And it was great to see everyone. Anytime I see you out there when I'm walking the field, please give me a holler, snap photos with you, throw me your phone. We'll do the selfie thing. And it's a great time. So keep that going. Please rate, review, share. All those things help us grow this pod. Leave us a comment in the YouTube comment section, and we'll engage with you as best as possible. Thanks to Lindsay, our producer here. The music you heard at the beginning is my other daughter, Preston. You can follow her on Instagram at Preston Smith Music or TikTok at Just Preston with a Y, Prestyn. And we'll be back again next week, Lo.
Let's
Hopefully,
do it with a win, buddy. With a
exactly.
win. Bolt
Exactly.
up.
There we
Bolt
go.
up.
Bolt
Let's
up.
go.